Hey friends, I'm Maxwell Freud, a queer Minneapolis-based board game designer and the host of Hatched This Way, a limited audio series where I chat with other queer folks in the tabletop industry to learn all about who they are and how they contribute to the hobby by being their authentic selves. And today I'm chatting with my friend, Grace Kendall from the Tabletop Mentorship Program. Grace, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Good. I'm so excited to catch up with you because time is so weird right now, but it's been a hot second, I think, since the last round of Tabletop Mentorship Program, I think.
Yeah, I think we're creeping towards a year. We took a hiatus to kind of revamp the program. We've assembled a board of directors and we're coming back this summer. It's the first time I've said that, actually.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I want to circle back and totally get into it, but that's awesome. So the big question is, how do you identify so people understand what are all the labels that make up Grace?
Yeah, so I love to identify as queer because it's a nice big blanket and I love blankets. If you break it down, I'm non-binary, first and foremost. My pronouns are they, them at the moment. And then I'm asexual, and I will commonly refer to that as being ace. And I am panromantic, and I'm also married. And I think that sums up me at the moment.
Just so I get your personal perspective on it, do you want to kind of break down what each of those means to you, starting with non-binary?
Yeah, so non-binary means a lot of things to a lot of people, but for me personally, it means I don't really know what my gender is. It's somewhere in the universe of things that may or may not exist. And it's a way to feel like I'm referring to myself in a way that doesn't feel wrong. I used to use genderqueer, and then non-binary came kind of into popular use. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to go with, weirdly, the mainstream queer terms because they kind of help people understand you. It's like a nice shorthand. So that just makes me feel like myself, which is wonderful. Everyone wants to feel like themselves. Asexual is not something that comes up in conversation much because it's not something you're usually discussing with people, especially if you're married like I am. But it was kind of the key to understanding my whole set of identities. So it was important as like the formative identity for me. And then panromantic it came after understanding that I was ace, which just means that I can love all kinds of people. Oh, I didn't actually break down what ace meant. I'm not physically attracted to people. I'm not sexually interested in being intimate with people as like a general rule. I don't experience that kind of attraction. And then for panromantic, I am romantically interested in any kind of person, regardless of their gender, identity, expression, any of that. I just like people.
So I kind of want to understand, what was your journey to discovering all that and putting names and terms around things? I don't know where to start specifically, but was there a moment when you feel like your journey kind of started and you're like, something's different?
Yeah, I feel like it's the classic answer of I went to college and you go to college and a lot of people who go to college have that space and independence to reflect on themselves in a different way, away from all the people who have known you, and you have kind of a new fresh start. And I think I had the stirrings of ideas that maybe I wasn't straight, but I didn't know what to do with that information because I wasn't like interested and attracted to other people. I didn't know what to do with that or what label to give myself or where to place that. And I kept going dates on guys that would go nowhere. And then I felt like I was just leading people on. And it was like a weird dilemma of this thing that you were supposed to do as like, at the time I was, raised and socialized as a girl and presented as one at the time. And, you're supposed to date guys and then, hook up with them. And it was like, oh, this isn't going anywhere. And I have no interest in it going anywhere. And I don't even feel that pressured for it to go anywhere. I just kept trying because it felt like the normal thing to do that you're supposed to do. And then I think I stumbled across like the word asexual online somewhere and was like, I wonder what that's about. And came across some forums online and read more about people who didn't experience attraction, physical attraction. And I was like, oh, this sounds like me. This makes a lot of sense. And the second that really solidified for me, it was like, oh, and I've been pining after my best friend for like years. That was a romantic attraction. But because I wasn't like interested in like making out with her, I didn't think that it meant anything about the rest of my identity. I just wanted to be her best friend and spend all of my time with her and all of the things that people in romantic relationships often do. And so being able to understand that my sexuality was separate from my interest in people, and that it was largely not a presence, really opened me up to understanding what I was interested in and who I was interested in. And that led me to that queer umbrella. And then I've made so many amazing queer friends since then that I have learned so much about other ways to identify, other experiences that people have. And I feel like the more, at least in my case, I don't know if it's the same for you, but the more I learn about the way other people live and experience the world, the more options it feels like there are for me to understand myself, whether it's new words or just new ways of viewing things, new ideas. Again, you know, the idea of asexuality didn't occur to me until somebody put that like on a plate in front of me. And I was like, oh, well, this is a thing that I could be now if that applies to me. And I feel like the more ideas and things are shared like that, the more options you feel like you have as a human. You know, the more neopronouns there are out there, the more choices you have, the more you can find something that feels like who you are. And so that's kind of been my journey of a great combination of the internet and really wonderful friends and accepting community strangers that have led me to understand myself better. And I'm sure I will continue to understand myself better as time goes on. You know, it's a journey that doesn't really stop. And I love that about it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me doing this series is I do want to try and be more inquisitive, because I have all these friends who I hang out with on a regular basis, and I don't really ask them those like probing questions of, oh, like tell me more about that. I usually am like, oh, okay, you're queer, perfect. Like we're best friends. I don't need to know more than that, but I've been finding that it's so enlightening to talk to someone about their experience and how they arrived to that identity and where they're at in their journey. It gives you just a really cool connection on a very different level than just putting everyone under the queer umbrella. And, you know, it's been a really cool journey. So I want to try, and even though I'm mostly awkward and in-person situations, is finding those opportunities where if I meet someone, ask them how they identify and then ask how they got there. It's just been a really amazing journey for me to get used to doing that. It's something I never did before, not all that often anyway. So I've really enjoyed having this practice to do that.
It takes a certain bravery. So good for you. It's a really cool way to connect with people, but it's often very intimidating, even amongst people you know well. And I feel like often there's the urge to not pry or not offend or, you know, not dig up trauma. But it does help you connect and understand each other and build those relationships so nicely. I'm going to take some inspiration from you and try and be a little more inquisitive with my friends too, because that's a really nice perspective on it.
Yeah, I've loved it. So what has your relationship with your husband been like? So how does he identify?
He's a straight cis male, and that's how he identifies, even while loving me, this very queer, non-binary person. Um, so it was the biggest gift of a relationship in that, like, I had spent that time in college and after college trying to date people, trying to navigate that, even once I understood like that I was ace, just trying to figure out how to relate to people. And then I lucked out in that my best friend, who is now my spouse, is just somebody that I loved spending time with, and he loved spending time with me, and we just grew closer and closer. And eventually, you know, we were living in New York with a bunch of friends making music, which is how we got to know each other. And then we moved to North Carolina on our own and found that we really enjoyed spending that time together and that we wanted to spend more time together. But we thought at that stage of our lives, when we were in our, I guess, our mid 20s, that we had different priorities. He really wanted to start a family, and I really wanted to travel. And so we said, we're going to have one last big hurrah. We were always big adventure people, and we were going to through hike the Appalachian Trail. So we sold like all of our belongings, picked up a tent, had never hiked really before, like never like overnight camped, and set out for this 6-month hike of the East Coast of the United States. And partway through decided that our priorities had shifted yet again, that you get to know someone really well when you see them and spend all of your time with them. We felt like we lived like years of a relationship, because most people, you see each other before work and after work and then on the weekends maybe, but we saw each other every minute of every day. And so we got to know each other so intensely. Again, that same idea of being inquisitive about each other. You run out of the standard surface level questions really quickly, or like playing 20 questions about like articles of clothing we're wearing. It's just like you gotta dig deep to have anything to talk about at that point. And we found that as our priorities shifted, we really wanted to spend more time together, and decided to stay together, even though we had like gone on this hike to have a great adventure and split up. We got engaged and then got married like a year later. And now we're coming up on 5 years.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's so romantic.
So what was his general response, or what have maybe your struggles been about finding that partner who understands all those different aspects of you? I guess, how did you know it was going to be a good fit? How did you know that was going to work out?
We are a people who like to just try things. We are go get 'em, like spirited people. And so I feel like it's been a constant evolution of just fully trying to be with each other. And so he is super inquisitive. I don't think he'll ever run out of questions. And so, and he's very respectful, because I oftentimes will clam up and be like, I either can't articulate an answer about myself or I don't want to. And I'm very lucky and very privileged that my experiences aren't really rooted in trauma. So, it's very lucky that we're not, having to sidestep something like really scary. But so his inquisitive nature has allowed him to really get to know me, and he's patient in understanding me when I am reluctant or slow to share information about myself. But as a result, he's never betrayed any of my trust with any of it, as I've shared bits and pieces about myself, things that I would never tell anybody else, or that there's a tentative nature as you're figuring out parts of yourself. For me at least, it's not always obvious answers. It's like, well, how am I feeling about my gender at this stage of my life? And what pronouns do I want to use to reflect myself? And so to have somebody who is willing to be game to figure that out with you, or let you test things and try things, and not, and to understand if you change your mind, or if that's not how things end up being. He's been very supportive as I tried out pronouns, and, a staunch defender, to anybody who uses the wrong pronouns. And, not to say that he's perfect, everybody, it's always a journey for everybody, but he's been so supportive in just me figuring out who I am. And, I'd like to think that I'm the same for him as well, that we are always trying to understand each other better. I know that's like his end goal. If he could live inside my brain for a day, he'd be the happiest person in the world, because he's just so interested in what other people's experiences are.
No, that's really cool. Yeah, I think it's hard to put all that in like a dating profile, I feel like. It's very specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It's interesting because I think several of the people I've interviewed who are non-binary generally will gravitate towards dating, or almost exclusively date other non-binary or at least queer people, just because they want to have that shared experience. But it might be different when you already kind of had that established relationship as you're like on your journey.
Yeah. And it was like incredibly awkward at the beginning, as we tried for, I want to say for like a week, maybe we tried like the dating idea of like, this is what a traditional relationship should look like. And very quickly had to kibosh that, and had to set rules. And, especially because, so I'm ace and he's allossexual. So that doesn't line up at all. And I was really concerned that was going to be an issue. Again, it's like the breaking point in most relationships. I feel like, at least in my experience, is if you don't want to have sex with somebody, well, then why are you in this relationship together? And that was like the mindset that I had. And so the freedom of somebody being like, I don't mind, or I'm not worried about it. And it took me a long time to trust that he was being honest about that like it wasn't something that was missing from our relationship or from his life. And we had, I mean, technically, I guess still have an open relationship, but neither of us has felt moved to do anything with other people because we really just enjoy each other so much and are so satisfied at this stage of our lives with each other that, yeah, really interestingly, to me at least, that hasn't, I remember it being a big stumbling block at the beginning and something I was really worried about. And now, like 5 years in, I don't really have a worry at all that's going to be something that divides us, which is so nice because it was such a worry at the time.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the hesitancies for queer people in being comfortable with themselves is just going against that ingrained, here's what relationships look like, here are the expectations. I guess going off that, so was it really for you in terms of representation and finding out those terms, was it just like a Google search for you? Is that kind of where you found yourself? Were there any other?
I'm such a like keep it all private kind of a like if I can Google, in the dark, like that's the safest, way to obtain knowledge. And the nice thing about the internet is there's so many opinions and ideas out there. So you're not, like if I learn a term that I'm not familiar with, then I'm going to seek it out in, 800 different contexts and see how other people are engaging with it and what it means to them. And that's so useful, at least for me, much more than talking to other people. I'm sure therapy would have been great, but sometimes you have the tools that you have access to. And so terminology as a starting point was really powerful for me in just unlocking my ideas of things because it made things feel more real, I think.
Did you have some kind of queer representation or a person in mind growing up? What was it about it that made you think, hey, I should search some queer terms and see if that's me?
I think it was the nagging sense that I was missing something rather than an example of something. But I remember in high school, like the prevailing feeling of, anytime I did something that I felt conformed to like a heteronormative idea, which I didn't have the words for at the time, but I would feel this resounding sense of this is what it's like to be normal. And I had that inkling that like, that's not the normal reaction. Like, that's not what most people think after their first kiss is like, oh, I'm a normal person now, It just was like those moments adding up to be like, I think there's something I don't know. And so my inquisitive sense comes out privately. And so that was where the internet was a real gift for that sort of thing.
It's interesting that we all have such different journeys to finding ourselves. I think that's so cool. I think for me, and probably as a film major, maybe that was part of it, is I think I saw myself and I didn't consciously know it, but I would see myself in a character, or I'd find like a guy extremely attractive and I just watched that movie a lot, and I didn't have words for it. I didn't have I never had that super out there clear example of like, hi, I'm a person and I am gay and this is what being gay is and what it looks like. I just knew guys were attractive, and hopefully that's out there. I think it is important to have that representation exist somewhere for younger kids. Just characters who say, hey, I'm gay, and it's, or whatever, and then having that shown like an audio and visual representation so I can understand what this looks like, and it's not a weird thing or a bad thing or a secret thing. A lot of, if you do get representation, a lot of times it's this salacious representation of, oh, it's like it's a secret affair, so like he's gay but it's on the side, or just more wholesome representation I think would be useful.
Yeah, where it's depicted lovingly or normally, and also clearly, because the nebulous stuff is also, again, sometimes having a word is a very powerful tool. And so the nebulous representation sometimes, is like, is it a queer bait moment, or am I just being are they just not allowed to like use the word gay, and they're trying to give me representation, but it's not there, I'm missing something.
I just watched Better Nate Than Ever on Disney Plus, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, from what I could gather, it's about a very flamboyant boy who wants to be on Broadway, and they do not say the word gay in the movie, but they imply it. Like, there's a scene where they zoom in on the father and he says, Nate's different. And then there's a scene later in the movie where his best friend, who's a girl, is like, basically is like, I like you. And he says, I'm not that way. And then he leaves. And then some lady on the bus is like, I'll explain it to you on the way home. I married a guy. I was married to a guy for years. And then I'm like, I don't like any of this. Like, no one, I guess maybe he's not gay. He could be aro or aromantic, maybe, but nothing was said. I have no language to tell you what his identity was, just that he didn't like his best friend back, but everyone on the bus knew what he was, but not in a great light, it seems. I hated it. Like, I was so upset in that scene that in the whole movie, they really didn't have clear gay representation, and they never said the word gay. And I was like, is this representation? Or I don't know. It felt very don't say gay to me.
Yeah, it's almost cheating, like at this point, and again, none of this is new. These identities and experiences have been around for millennia. And so to just still be skirting it with, like, in the US, the conversations, what they are, it feels terrible sometimes to just be like, this is what passes for representation still. This is what people are excited about. And that's disappointing.
Yeah, it's implied. And it's like, well, implied isn't really giving us language to live our best lives or help people understand us. It's just, people just don't get it. We're still getting responses where, oh, I had no idea. And it's like, well, maybe if you had some language or representation, it wouldn't have been such a mystery to you. Gets me all heated when I think about it.
Well, especially for something like ace and arrow identities, where you don't necessarily have the same even visual signifiers, and you need that language often to be able to understand that. I feel like BoJack Horseman was the first time I saw a character say they were asexual anywhere, and then they focused on it so much, but I couldn't be mad at it, because it was like, I get that this is the first time some people have had any encounter with this, and I love that it wasn't just a passing comment.
Do you see yourself as a queer person in board games? Is there any kind of representation or a game where you're like, hey, this feels like me, or something like that?
That's a great question. I'm trying to think of any experiences that have made me feel like validated in my identity, but I'm mostly coming up blank.
I mean, to be fair, I haven't really asked a straight person that same question, but for them, I like, do you need validation? Yes, I felt just as straight playing this game as I did not playing this game. In the reverse, I guess I felt just as gay playing any game I've played. But yeah, I don't know. That's also one of the reasons I got into game design, is like trying to find ways to make my identity in there, like try to find myself in games. It seems like it could be removed, but at the same time, like, there's representation of people in games. Like, yeah, it's usually like a husband-wife thing. If you think of farming games, you probably have a husband, wife, and kids, and that's usually the trope. I think, like, a dynamic that you have. Game of Life, it's a husband-wife thing. You can put the same color pegs in the car, but yeah, it's hard to, nothing like cultural, like a mainstay that's like, oh no, this is a very queer game. I think video games probably do it a lot better, where they give you more options too.
I feel like the closest I've probably come has been definitely in like playtesting other people's games rather than finished products that you can buy at a store. But I also think probably the closer ones have been things that are a little more free form, where you're putting yourself into something as opposed to having been assigned a character, which is, again, not the same as seeing yourself in a game, but there is sometimes a joy in a game that gives you the space to bring yourself into the gaming experience. I wish I had a great example, like, off the top of my head right now, but it's
a tough one. And as I say it, like, I don't really actually think I have a great, perfect solution for it. I talked to Nikki Valens, and they have like these really cool ideas for Fog of Love expansions that sound so cool,
Mhm.
where you get to explore like these different queer identities and how they affect your relationship. And I was like, I would love to play that just to experience like that kind of dynamic in a game. I think that's the coolest thing. Like that would be a perfect format for it.
Yeah, no, that seems like an ideal experience that I feel like a lot of people would want to play.
I mean, I would. So it's like one person. I think that's enough. That's
We
go
can
to
bump
market.
too.
So talk to me a little bit about your involvement in the hobby. Maybe specifically, what's the Tabletop Mentorship Program?
Yeah, the Tabletop Mentorship Program is a program that my husband actually started a couple of years ago. It is at its core, it's a mentorship program that exists for people of any experience level from I thought of an idea for a game, how do I make a game, to I'm really trying to break into the industry as a publisher or a distributor. And it pairs people up with others in the community who have even just a little more experience than them to be somebody to guide or cheerlead or inspire or hold accountable, whatever the person is looking for, to help them move forward on their journey of creation in the community. And it doesn't all have to be just game design, with people who are artists and distributors and publishers and graphic designers and reviewers and content creators, all sorts of things. So anybody making anything in the community, the idea is it's a program to help you be more connected to other people in the community, give you somebody to help you with the steps forward, because it can be so intimidating to figure out what to do from where you are. Sometimes you need somebody to help you see or be brave enough to take the next steps forward. So it's a free program, generally runs for 3 months at a time. We have taken a hiatus to become a little more organized and get some more forward-thinking folks involved in helping move the organization forward. So we're establishing ourselves as a nonprofit organization with board members from around the world to hopefully continue to make it a more welcoming and inclusive space that that more and more people will feel welcome in.
Yeah, and I feel like I can't recommend it enough. It was so weird for me because I had like decided I wanted to get into game design to, you know, change the whole industry pretty much, we're going to fix it all with my one game. And so I worked on it for a couple years. I want to say like maybe 2 years ish. And then I was like, I just need to finish this. I want to self-publish it because I'm not sure I'll be able to find a publisher who's going to want to do all the cool inclusive things that I want to include. Like I will compromise on a lot of things. The representation was not something I was wanting to compromise on. And so I just wanted to make sure I could have some control over that. And I was like, I just need to self-publish it. It'll be great. I know artists and whatever. I do a lot of stuff. So I was like, but I just need someone to hold me accountable. And I literally thought those words. And then it was like a positive example of my phone listening to me where I think it was your tweet or somehow, I think it was a tweet that showed up on my timeline. It was like, hey, Tabletop Mentorship Program. Are you looking for a mentor to help you? And I was like, oh my God.
It was meant to be.
It was the wildest thing. And then I got an amazing mentor, Jonathan Woodard, and he was just a great cheerleader and hooked me up with introductions to people he knew. And I put together, like, he walked me through like everything I had to do. And I guess I forgot a big section of my story is that I had all this forward momentum and then the pandemic happened. I forgot to mention the pandemic. And I was like, I don't have energy to do anything anymore. I don't want, I don't have the time or energy to self-publish because I'm trying to survive. So maybe I'll find a publisher now. And that was where I was like, I need some help because I'm tired. And so having that other person to cheer me on and give me achievable goals that I could be accountable for and show up each week and be like, yes, I did the thing we talked about. I'm making progress. I talked to publishers. I eventually got the game signed. And then this is my second game that I did with a different publisher. So it just set me on like a track for success. And I owe pretty much all that to the program for helping me during the pandemic when I had very little energy or drive to do anything really. And it was way more than it's a huge process. Like designing a game and getting out there like for the market there's a ton of steps that go into it and making it viable and pitching it and finding publishers. And if you're self-publishing, that's a whole nother, like just making a game is one half of it. Getting a game made is another half of the thing. So you just have so many amazing people in the program. You and your husband are super amazing. I don't know if this is a good enough explanation for it. There might be like, there's literally how many people in it who could literally echo the same exact things I'm saying. And I'm sure you've heard rave reviews for, it's such a cool thing to have out there. It's really amazing.
It's really nice. Yeah, it's really great to hear when people have great experiences, and I'm so glad that it was able to connect you and that you've been able to keep up that momentum and really, because it's all, the wonderful thing about a mentorship is it's all under your own power. It's everything you bring to the table and it's everything your mentor brings to the table. And there's something so nice about getting to come out of an experience where you like made a connection or you had some help or some assistance, but still be able to come out and be like, but I did all of this, this was still my power, and you still get to come out feeling great about yourself. And that's one of my favorite things about it, because everyone needs the space to feel like all their ideas are valid. And like, because I'm like you, I want a cheerleader. I want somebody to tell me I'm great, hold me accountable, but also be like, you got this, and some people they just need to be challenged or they want to be taught. But I think there's such a power in being told your ideas are great and you need to keep going for them. And that's my favorite part of all of it.
Yeah, just someone saying this is worth your time, because you never know, especially in this hobby. A lot of people have ideas, and honestly, not all of them on their own are worth the amount of time being put into it, but they could be. Like any idea could be worth it if you have like the right direction and drive and
and
intentions.
To me, worth is so subjective, because I really love the hobby side of things where the end goal doesn't have to be, it's great when you get a game signed by a publisher. It feels so good. I've had a handful of games signed and it feels exciting every time. And again, it's like, I'm normal. I did it. I made it. I'm in the system. I'm playing by the rules and I'm achieving success. Look how great I am. But I really love making weird stuff for my friends and with my friends. I feel like that's where my best game designs have come from. And that they don't have to follow that path either, that just making things for the sake of making them is also a fantastic worth. And that you can come into the program and just be like, I just want to make this game for my brother. I think my brother would really love to play this game with me. And like, that's just as worthy a goal as like, I'm trying to get this published. And I think often, and I love that you keep referring to like the hobby and the community, one of my life goals is to remove the word industry out of every part of the Tabletop Mentorship Program, because sometimes it's such an instinctive focus for people to look at that down the line path. Well, if I don't make the right number of pieces, then a publisher won't be able to make this and the costs will be too expensive, and you kind of spiral and limit what you get to create. And I think there's something so nice and freeing. I think the TTRPG scene does it so well in such an experimental and wild fashion. I'm constantly in awe of the things being made there. And I want to see more of that on the board game side of things too. I want people making wildly impractical games that you could never publish in a traditional sense, but I want to play it, I want to have that experience. I think there's so much fun to be had, and I love the fun part of it.
Yeah, I think I definitely went in with like I want a foot into the industry, and it totally gave me that. But yeah, it's totally just as valid to have a good time. That's the point of the hobby, is you want to have fun and a good time. I've said that before too. Like, not every game has to be market viable. It can just be fun for you. Just you is fine. It could be fun for you and some friends or whoever you show it to. And that's great. That's totally valid. It might not sell, and a publisher might never pick it up, and that's okay. You don't have to. That's not the only goal.
Yeah, Mike and I made a roll and write game that we put on Kickstarter for, I want to say 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. I think it might have just been 1 week, though. The goal was to keep it really short. We were inspired by our friend Bez, who does super short campaigns. Yeah, and she makes the most interesting, weird fun experimental games. And so we made this like Halloween themed roll and write and put it up. And I exclusively was on board to do this Kickstarter because I wanted to send everyone candy. Like I was like, wouldn't it be fun if you got a game for Halloween and it came with a bunch of candy? And that was like the entire, like the game already existed. It was great, but I wanted to mail candy to people. And that was enough of a reason to do it. And it was so satisfying. And, you know, no publisher is going to be like, yeah, I'm in for the candy variant of your game where we need to send them candy. But people were into it and it was really fun and satisfying. And now we're like, oh, let's release like a different Halloween game every year now. It doesn't have to be practical. It just has to be fun.
That's so funny because my co-designer loves the idea of sending we have like food tokens in the game. So he wants to send, I think in his mind, Skittles along so that you can use the Skittles instead of the food resources.
Yes, please.
I don't know about that. That's very I don't know if everyone's going to be on board for that. And he's like, he really wants to custom print the food icons onto the Skittles. And he's like, oh, I looked into it. It's not an option. I'm like, why are you looking into that? This is not a good use of resources.
Do those custom print M&Ms. You can get like anything on an M&M.
I was like, yeah, we could probably do M&Ms. So it's not out of the question. He'll probably find a way to make it happen. I'm like, this is... I think it's like not a high priority right now, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Oh, I love it though. It's so fun. It fills me with joy to think of a game with like screen printed Skittles.
I mean, now that I've put it out there, he's probably like, yeah, we definitely need to do that.
It's always the fatal mistake is telling someone now it's viable somehow.
I know. Look out. It'll be on there. If it shows up on the Kickstarter, I blame you. I will credit you, I guess. That's the phrase.
I'll take either, blame, credit. It's all in the same pot.
What was your path of getting into the hobby? What drew you into the board games?
Board games. My family was a board game family growing up. Like a lot of people, we played a lot of Scrabble. Scrabble was like the family game. I remember, you know, my dad wasn't allowed to use jargon from work against like my 5-year-old brother. That was like a family rule because he would, if you didn't have a rule, he would just be like, this is a technical acronym that I'm allowed to play. So we took our games very seriously, but it was such a nice way to spend time. And then when I came out of college, my friends played board games and taught me Catan. And then I started going to like board game meetups and meeting people who played games and started finding some of my favorites. I really like Euros. And so finding the games that like really gelled with me that I wanted to play a lot, very strategic, and it's very fun to have that puzzle to solve. It's very satisfying for me. So I got into playing games, and then after our like giant hike, my husband got really into board games while I went back to the woods for like another summer. I hadn't had enough, and he had like found his dream job in New York and was back to like suburban life. And I came back from the woods and he was like, I own 200 board games now. And I was like, whoa. This is not where I left you. So I had to play some catch up there. But it was...
That's how it happens. It gets you.
Right? Yeah, so quick. 6 months. You're just like, oh, you've got multiple subscription boxes. They mail you surprise games every month. That's very cool, but also very intimidating. I have a lot of rules to catch up on. So he then kind of pulled me forward into all sorts of, you know, kind of the deeper hobby games. And from there, we had tried to design a terrible game based on our Appalachian Trail experience, as one does. You know, you do something that you're like, this would make a game. And then we tried to make it, and it would have taken us longer to play the game than to hike the actual trail again. So we're like, this is terrible. And he used that as a springboard to keep designing games. And I was like, I'm good. I just like making stuff with friends. But because he kept designing games, he kept sharing his ideas with me, and I can't not collaborate. You know, I'm a musician. I'm a storyteller. I love creating. And so as he'd come with a problem, you know, well, how can we solve it? And then it was like, oh no, I guess I'm a game designer too. I'm also doing this process, and then started to design a little on my own. I still prefer generally to co-design, and generally to co-design with him because he's a safe person for me to fumble through bad ideas and to take rejection from, where it's a lot harder to take rejection from a stranger or even an acquaintance. So I really enjoy co-designing with him, but I have made a couple of games on my own as well. And so, yeah, it's just nice to make things. That's always been my experience anyway.
What are some of your favorite board games? And, or if that's too tough, what are some that you like to recommend to people who are interested in the hobby or getting into the hobby?
Yeah, all of the above. I really enjoy Sagrada. I think, again, for like a little puzzly game, it's beautiful. It's a fun little puzzle. It's both fiendishly hard and very satisfying, and a game that you can like eat snacks during and sit around a table with your friends, and like you don't have to be like dialed in at all times. It's a nice, weirdly like a mix of relaxing and like you must pay attention now. I really love the networks where you're building a bunch of your favorite TV shows into a successful TV network that's thriving because it's got the best stars and the best ads and all the fun parts and pieces. So
I love the networks.
it's so good. Have you played the rival networks?
I have it. I haven't played it yet, but even working in TV, I was like, I love it. It's so like, what you didn't mention is the best part, which is like all the cards are hilarious. Like I love the naming conventions. They're so smart. Yeah, it's just I enjoy playing it just because it's a fun experience to play, even if I don't win.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's got so much humor baked into it, and it's nicely competitive. It's just a good time all around. And the art on the cards too is like fantastic. And then I always get the name of this game wrong, which is a shame because it's like one of my favorites, but I think it's called The Great Dinosaur Rush. And I always want to say escape. It's not the term, but you are a paleontologist and competing with other paleontologists to make dinosaur fossils to display in a museum. And the entire game, you're manipulating what's popular. So it's not about making an accurate dinosaur that was definitely a real dinosaur in real life. It's like people are really into long neck dinosaurs. I need to make a dinosaur skeleton with a really long neck out of whatever bones I can find. And you like actually get to you take your little Catan roads and shape them into a dinosaur. And so there's such a creative thrill in like revealing your museum display of like, here's the Dramatosaurus Rex who majored in theater in college and isn't sure what to do with the rest of his life, you know? And you're just like, here's why he has a really long tail. It's great. It's like so much fun. So I love that. And Dragoon is one of my all-time favorite games too, which has metal pieces and a fabric board, and you're just dragon stomping around, living your best dragon life. And it's a very satisfying experience all around.
Ugh, I remember that Kickstarter. It looks so fancy, and I think I was like poor. Otherwise, I was very interested.
It's the only game that I was like, I will pay for the deluxe version of this, because I had played it and loved it, and I went through a phase actually where, because my husband owned so many board games and he was really into like the collecting aspect of the hobby. And I was really at the time focused on the ideas of minimalism and trying to put them into practice in my own life. So I was trying not to accumulate a lot of stuff, which is at odds with board game collection. So we didn't own my favorite games. And it took me a while to realize that like I felt very disconnected from the board games we had in the house because we didn't have any of my favorites. Which felt weird because we had like 200 games. Like, why don't I have the games that I like? And so we had to make like a concerted effort to be like, and I will get, or they will be gifted to me, the games that inspire joy in me and make me want to play games. And so I have like the gold edition of Dragoon because it was a treat to myself to be like, this is my favorite game and I want to play this and have the coolest experience every time. And so I'm very joyful to get to do that.
Yeah, and I'm totally behind if the components like create a cool tactile experience. I'm all for like deluxifying in that sense. If the experience isn't that different, then I don't understand it. But like I will pay. I have paid money for trays to better organize my games, because baggies in a box do not a great setup experience make. I'll say that. Yeah, you gotta get those inserts. You gotta wooden bits, or like I played Bullet with the wooden discs, and I guess the regular retail version has cardboard discs, and I would never touch it. I'd be like, no, this isn't. This is a different game. This is terrible. Take this away from me.
I think so much of it is your first experience of a game too. Like if you play with nice components first, you're kind of ruined. Like Dragoon started out as all metal pieces. So when they came out with a plastic version, I was like, that's cute, but and like I taught my mom to play Splendor, and I had won a Splendor tournament at PAX. So I got like the play mat and like the upgraded token. So I taught my mom, and she was, after one game, she was like, okay, now I have to own this game. It's great. And she immediately bought the play mat too. And I was like, is my mom secretly a hobby gamer now? Like, I don't think anybody who has the Splendor play mat. Like, it's weird that I have it.
Hey, it's all about the experience. Like you said, if it's a good experience, I'm all for it. Like if it makes the experience better, splurge. That's what I say.
That's why people love minis so much. And that's one that like doesn't connect with me, but it's such an experience thing for people. You can't pay me to sit and paint a bunch of stuff.
I can pretend that I'm going to sit and paint a bunch of stuff and not, because that's how I live my life. Is there anything about the industry that you're seeing that makes you hopeful, or that you want to see improvements in terms of representation and inclusion specifically?
I think the thing that makes me hopeful is just seeing fantastic queer people in the community going for it. I feel like we're still not at the point where everybody's work is being maybe received because there's so much competition to get things published. You know, we don't have a lot of like exclusively queer publishers who are like, we're, doing the same kind of work that you're doing with your design. We're like, our goal here is to, publish great queer games. And that's not to say those companies don't exist. Snowbright Studios is doing that work, and, there's definitely people doing it. But I think what gives me the most hope is seeing just amazing creators making interesting art, making cool games, and putting it out there, and finding people who are excited to play it, getting a good reception. I think that's the thing that makes me excited and hopeful, because as long as people are creating that work, it's going to find people, even if it's just on small levels. The more we put out there, the more it connects with people. And so that's, I think, the most exciting thing is playing somebody's, random prototype, and you're like, oh, this is awesome and different. And I'm so glad that you've put your personal experiences into this, and that I've gotten to enjoy that as a result. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I love any design that I play that's different. Like I love that word when it comes to especially board games. If you show me something like, I haven't played anything like this before, I love that. Yeah, I get so excited still when I see a queer designer, or however they identify themselves, and I see that in a Kickstarter campaign. It's like insta back for me. I'm not at the point yet where I'm going to critique how good the game is. I'm just like, I'm here to support you because I want more queer people to take up space in the industry, and I want them to be making games. I hope they make decisions in games. That's kind of another big gap, is a lot of the bigger publishers don't have queer people in the decision-making space. So we can only do so much in terms of what we design and what we suggest, and what we want to see change. But until we're in a position where we can actually affect change, I think it's going to be very slow. Mm-hmm. So trying to advocate for more queer people in positions of power, I think would be, I would love to see it.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I like about the mentorship program too, is we do see a lot of people, because you do have the chance when you like apply to specify who you're looking to connect with and who you're not looking to connect with. And so we've been able to see people build a network of, supportive queer folk or people of color, and, connecting with each other and building those relationships that then, obviously go out into the world. And, we've seen people rise through some of the ranks of powers or get jobs in the industry. And again, it's not like queer people aren't in positions of power in the industry, but just connecting and giving more opportunities for people of different experiences to to be able to make those decisions so that so many more interesting things can come to light, and we don't have to bog down content creators with having to review all these, hugely problematic elements of games, or, the idea that rule books still use, how hard is it to use they as a gender neutral pronoun in your rule book, like those little fights that, we could be so past and not, there's so much opportunity. You're right. People in power make such a difference.
What are your hopes because the program's running up or starting up again? Maybe just talk to me about where's the program going in the future?
Yeah, so we're restarting the program right now, aiming to restart this summer. We are starting to explore ways to connect in physical space as well, because the program's always just been virtual, just online connections. But as conventions have started going back up again, because we really hit our stride during the pandemic, again, nobody was going anywhere. So now it's new opportunities to connect there as well. As part of the mentorship program, we had been running a monthly micro grant program as well that was helping underrepresented creators get additional funding to keep their projects going or start them in the first place. And we are looking at ways to do that more effectively. So that's something we're kind of entirely revamping to relaunch. So it's a lot of, on an administrative level, we're trying to make the program stronger so that it is more welcoming, more accommodating to people on a global level, because we are, Mike and I are both white folk in the US, and we come from our own set of experiences. And the program has been connecting with a lot of people who don't match our experiences, which is wonderful. And we want to make sure we're not underserving those communities. So bringing a really diverse, thoughtful, wonderful group of people from around the world together has been really exciting, getting everybody's ideas and input to make it just a better program. Because while the core of the mentorship is, you're assigned a mentee or a mentor and you work with them over the 3 months, we also do, an educational video series and all these roundtable discussions and playtesting nights and events throughout to try and, again, give you a sense of community and support. So if you've come in and you don't know anybody, you can leave knowing lots of people. So trying to come up with ways to do that more effectively so that we're not on such a US-centric schedule, and even, down to those little details, helping people thrive where they are. And we know we're not the only program out there that's offering mentorship or doing things like that, which is what we want. Again, just like the more games, the better, the more support for creators, the better. But we're trying to do our piece to make it as inclusive and welcoming and supportive for people so that we can get really cool stuff in the world.
Do you have a personal mission or goal in the industry when you're putting the stuff together, aside from just trying to put together the best program possible?
My goal in general, so I read a book a couple of years back about your personal impact and deciding what you want your impact on the world to be. Not only to help you narrow your focus to be more effective in creating that impact, but also to alleviate, maybe it's a byproduct, to alleviate some of the guilt or stress on, I can't be responsible for trying to solve everything or, fix all the problems that I want to fix, the things that I care about in the world. So I've really tried to focus in the last couple of years on my impact being supporting creators. I love when people make things. I was part of a really wonderful musical community for a while that I ended up kind of stepping up into a leadership role there as well. And it was so joyful to help other people feel empowered. And so anything that I can do to support creators and to help people feel like they can make stuff, whatever that stuff is, that's always what my goal is. So anything that I can do to support that feels great. And so then within that, if I can connect with the people that I think are doing some of the most interesting work or underappreciated work, then that's even better. But I just want everybody to feel like they have the ability to make stuff and that the things that they make have value and worth. So that's kind of my personal mission. That's what I bring to the mentorship program. That's my specific kind of focus and drive. That's what makes me want to be part of these programs and create things like that, because I know how valuable it's been when people have validated my own creations. And it's easy to stop making things because you've gotten negative feedback, or you feel like there's no space for it or no interest in it. Oh, there's already so many board games out there. Well, why would anybody want mine? But I want it because it's yours, and I want to play it because you made it. And that's special and that has value. And so anytime that I can give someone that feeling or help them connect with that feeling within themselves, the more opportunities I think that people have to create, the better.
Well, that's beautiful. I don't want to say anything after that. Let's just end right there. End of the series. That's it. End of the internet. To that end, how can people connect with you, support you? Obviously, I mean, if they want to get involved, that's an option. Or is there a way they can support you even if they're not interested in game design? What are my options here?
If you're interested in the mentorship program, you can go to tabletopmentorship.org. That's got the information on the programs, again, that will be relaunching soon, and has a lot of resources as well. There's a whole page of resources for financial opportunities and other mentorships and other things if you're looking for something right now to support yourself or to give you that extra oomph to keep moving forward. There's a lot there. If you just want to connect with me, I am occasionally on Twitter at Grace_Kendall, GRACE_KENDALL. You're always welcome to shoot me a message or say hi. Twitter has become less a space that has brought me joy lately, so I've tried to wean myself off it a bit, but I love connecting with people. So feel free to say hi. Also, if you see me at a convention, I'm always happy to say hello, but always very nervous to introduce myself. So again, I think a lot of us enjoy the virtual connections a lot more than the in-person, just because it's a little more nerve-wracking sometimes to do it face-to-face, but I'm always happy to say hi.
Yeah, I personally loved the virtual like playtesting, proto spiels. I loved the virtual a lot of things because everyone had their pronouns. It was very, you didn't have to turn your camera on. I found it very approachable and accessible. I went to Gen Con and I saw people that I like knew or I recognized, let's say. I didn't know them, where I was like, do I introduce myself? They're probably busy. They don't need to introduce me. Like they're going somewhere, they're doing something. I won't say anything. That's me all the time.
I completely get it. To PAX Unplugged, and I'm like, I like went to the bathroom, and the group that I had been playing games with in the playtesting Unpub room, they started playing a new game while I was gone. So I came back and I was like, oh, they've got a game in progress. I'll just find another game. And I like walked just slow, sad loops of the room, and then like sat down and had a small cry and was like, all right, I guess I sit here alone now. And like, thank goodness that somebody like from my local game design community recognized that I was like not having a good time and came over and was like, you should play my game. And I was like, thank you. I'm just gonna sit here so awkwardly. Again, all these people that you've made connections with online, you're like, they've been in the program that I help run, and yet I still can't be like, can I play your game?
It's terrifying. It's really scary. People are terrifying.
It's so intimidating. You need can there be like a buddy system that's like, hey, you want to come meet other people at this convention, but you don't know how to start talking to them? Like, I need like extrovert buddy systems, maybe.
Yes, I need an extrovert buddy all the time. Actually, I will, since we brought it up, I will mention, I know Gen Con doesn't, I don't know if any other convention does it, but they have like a gamer hour or something. It's a session strictly for queer people. You can sign up, it's a free ticket, you go there, and then it's not exclusively queer people, but it's intended for queer people to gather, meet each other, play games together. I did that once and I had a good time. I sat down, met a couple new friends, and played a game. Yeah,
that's wonderful.
So there are things like that, but yeah, navigating the majority of the event, I would very much benefit from a extrovert buddy to drag me places and introduce me to people. That's the next program. So that's your next idea for your next, you've done the mentorship program. Now you need the extrovert buddy program.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe that can just be a channel in your Discord. Is here we're hooking up the extrovert buddies for the introverts so you can survive your conventions. I'm there. I kind
of love it. I think that could definitely self-run itself. The problem with being a person who comes up with ideas, and I'm sure you feel this as a game designer too, like you ever have just too many ideas and you're like, I cannot make all of these games, or I cannot do all of these things. There's so many dreams for the mentorship program. I've like mentally designed this whole an apprenticeship path where you like actually publish a game together, and like all these people get to have a role in it. So you come out with like a published credit, and then we sell the games to fundraise to support the program. It's just like, we got to make this program. This got to happen first, and then we can get down the line. But I love an extrovert buddy system. It sounds great.
Yeah, those are the printed M&Ms, I'm telling you. All right. Well, thank you so much. I had such a good time talking to you. This was so much fun. As a disclaimer at the end here, I just want to remind everyone that we are just a couple of queer folks. We do not speak for the entire LGBTQIA+ community, nor are we trying to. The best way to be an ally is just to keep learning, listening, and remember, we're trying to get through this all together. That's all I have. If you're listening, know that you're loved and perfect just the way you are. And until next time, see ya.
That was so nice. What a nice little ending.